My dad works in B2B marketing, but I never really knew what that meant. Then one day my dad came by my school for career day and told everyone in my class he was a big ROAS man. Then he just kept saying things like, the bigger the ROAS, the better, over and over. My friends still laugh at me to this day. I think it means calculating a return on ad spend. One thing's for sure, I'll be known as the ROAS man's kid for the rest of my days. Why couldn't you just be a fireman or a lawyer? Why? You ruined my life, Dad.
Not everyone gets B2B, but LinkedIn has the people who do. And with ads on LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people based on job title, industry, likelihood to buy, and more. Start converting your B2B audience into high-quality leads today. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 45% off select styles. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Coming up on this episode of the Entrepreneurial You.
How do you go from 0 to $1 million to 5 million, 5 million to 10 million? How do you scale and still have a life that's worth living? I have a thing called the 5 F's. So it's faith, family, finances, fitness, and friendship. So you've got those things. So if I want a balanced life, I bet if I'm doing pretty good in those, I'm doing okay. Everyone in your business should know what success looks like on the daily, on the weekly, on the monthly, the quarterly, and the yearly.
Hey, it's John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and it's the Entrepreneurial You, the show for dedicated and passionate Caribbean entrepreneurs seeking daily inspiration, brought to you by author, speaker, and award-winning entrepreneur Heneka Watkis-Porter. You must be prepared to ignite.
Hello, my peak performance. It is your girl, Heneka Watkis-Porter, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Entrepreneurial You podcast. This is the podcast that turns big dreams into big actions, giving you the inspiration and insights to conquer the business world like a boss, like the boss that you are, right? So today we have an extraordinary guest who's redefining what it means to be a multifaceted entrepreneur and a leader. He's not only the CEO of Sharpen Coaching, but also a U.S. Marine, a boxer, a black belt, and yes, even a steel sculptor. And if that wasn't enough, he's a dedicated father of 6. I think that is the job that tops it all, right? So Talk about unstoppable. So please join me in welcoming the remarkable Richard Walsh, author of Escape the Owner Prison. Welcome, Richard.
Welcome, Heneka. How you doing? Thanks for having me on. This is great.
Oh, it's such an honor to have you. Thank you so much. And you are indeed welcome. Now, we're going to be talking today, as I mentioned, I kind of allude to our conversation's topic based on your book, which is Escape the Business Owner Prison, Reclaim Joy, Balance, and Freedom. And so today's episode for my audience is all going to be about breaking free from the business owner prison and reclaiming joy in your work, because trust me, I know that sometimes the joy can just go missing. So we'll explore shifts to escape burnout, regain balance, and rediscover your passion. So stay tuned as you transform overwhelm into true freedom, because many of us, we said that when we were about to start our business, why are we starting? We were chasing freedom, right? And we became prisoners of our own businesses. And so Richard is here today to take us through that, just escaping that. Who wants to be a prisoner? I don't. All right. So icebreaker for you, Richard, before we get into the meat of the matter. So you've done so much entrepreneur, marine champion, boxer, steel sculptor, all of these things, right? I want to know, what's the most random thing you've ever sculpted in steel?
Wow. I did a walk under waterfall So it looks like a giant, it's huge, like 12 foot, it cantilevers out. It looks like a giant plant. You have to kind of see it, but you literally can walk under it and the water's falling off the end of this giant, picture like a 9 foot petal of a
Mm,
flower, and the water spills off the end, but it goes up 10 feet and then
mm.
comes out like a giant L kind of, but it looks very, very organic. That was probably the most unusual thing I built, and actually ended up installing it where a guy had a train, like a park train you ride on in a tennis court. And we put the tracks underneath that. So you actually would ride on this train and go underneath the waterfall. It was really cool. So you're like behind it, but you're underneath it. So yeah, that's probably my most unusual thing I made, pretty much. I did some other cool stuff, but that one was fun.
And I bet it did survive your 6 kids, right?
It did. It did.
All right. So, we're talking about owner's prison, and some wannabe entrepreneurs may be listening and like, yeah, right. You're just saying that because you're trying to scare us and you don't want us to be free and you don't want us to have your business. Okay. So why did you come up with that concept? As you begin to explore, coaching and entrepreneurship, what led you into thinking that there is in fact an owner's prison?
Yeah, so my first 20 years in business, I had a custom water feature business, steel sculptor, stuff like that. So in 08, 09, that all crashed, went away. I lost everything, my business, my home, all this stuff with my 6 little kids and everything. So had to start over, did something completely different. What I realized, Heneka, that time, and here's the thing with my kids, I had this epiphany, and I love to share this because it was so pivotal in what I'm doing today and what I did after that point. But I started realizing my kids just wanted to be around me. They loved me when I came home. They hated when I left. And I was always business first. I was winning awards. I'm doing all this great stuff. I'm internationally recognized. And that was what drove me. Yet I wasn't really paying attention to the business itself. I was like too busy being out front. And then everything collapsed and I lost everything. So I had to start over. And what I realized again with the epiphany was if I stay on the business first path, that's all that matters. I have to win all the time and nothing can distract me from that. I'm actually going to ruin my children's future. They're going to have broken marriages and failed relationships, right? They might be good at business, right? But everything else will be ruined in their life. And so that day I got up and said, I'm not going to do that to them. And I walked in and shut it down. I mean, we were going to probably close anyways, but I'm like, we're done today. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do. I went to my construction yard, told my crew, we're wrapping it up this week. I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to do this to my family. And that started the journey, right? So I started another business, figured out what I wanted to do, scaled 2 more businesses, but did it right this time where I wasn't doing all the work. It didn't own me, right? So here's the important thing. As I recovered from the first business, started succeeding in the next business or 2, people started asking me, well, how'd you do that? How do you go from 20 years being number one to losing everything to getting back on the path? And I started talking to them about their business, right? Mentoring them. I started seeing the same patterns again and again and again. And this is how it looks. We worked really hard the first 2 years, right? Business is hard. When you start, you're going to wear a lot of hats. You're going to work a lot of hours. And I haven't found any way around that. Okay, that's just nature of running a business. But the problem is, Heneka, next thing you know, 10 years has gone by and you've repeated the first 2 years 5 times. So you're stuck on the hamster wheel. That's the prison. And every business I was talking to had the same pattern. They're a great craftsman. They're a great technician. They're good at what they do, but they don't really know business. They started the business. So they get going and they make a little more money. But like you said in the beginning, they don't have the freedom. They don't have their own time, right? They don't go to their kids' games and recitals and everything else they got in business to do was to have all that time freedom and everything else. They never get that. And that was me for 20 years. So that's why I came up with Escape the Owner Prison. I wanted to write a book about it because I saw the patterns. I wanted to show people how to do it. How do you go from 0 to a million to 5 million, 5 million to 10 million? How do you scale and still have a life that's worth living? That was the whole catalyst of it.
Yeah, interesting story that you just shared with your family. And you said something very poignant, Richard, is that, if you continued on that path, they would have been, your kids would have been grown up good at business, but failing at everything else. And we know that in life, there is, when people say to me balance, I say that's a misnomer because there's no way you can have balance. At some point, something else is going to take precedence, so what you try to work for is harmony. But for the context of this conversation, how do you strike that balance, as it were, so that it's you tend to business, but you tend to family, you tend to your spiritual life, you tend to your mental health, you tend to all of those things, and you're not feeling like you're in a prison?
Right. So, and you're exactly right about the harmony aspect. Okay. There isn't balance, because balance would be equal. Everything is equal. I've got, 10, 10, 10, 10 all the way across. So I have a thing called the 5 F's. So it's faith, family, finances, fitness, and friendship. So you've got those things. So if I want a balanced life, I bet if I'm doing pretty good in those 5 areas, I'm doing okay, right? I'm pretty balanced. But the problem I found, again, going back to these patterns, was if an entrepreneur, if their business is a hot mess, or they're doing everything and they can't count on people coming in, and they kind of don't have things systemized and prioritized and have standard operating procedures, they can never attempt the 5 F's, because their mind's always in the business, always, whether it's the moment before they go to sleep, the second they wake up, they dream about it, they live it. That becomes the obsession. So they never get to the 5 F's. So first thing, we have to fix the business. We have to get that business self-running. And what we do is we call it the 5% of the business that only the owner can do, right? The vision, the growth strategy, things like that. That's the goal, is to get an owner to that position. They don't need to do the accounting. They don't need to be doing all the sales. They don't need to do or the installation, if they're in some kind of contracting business. They don't need to do that. We want them to focus on the big picture. That's the goal we want to get to. So as that goes, once we get that fixed, now it's faith. And for me, that's first. Then it's family. And in that, it's my wife first, then my kids. Okay, it goes in that order. And then we've got finances, right? We got to make sure our money's right. And again, if our business is running properly, guess what we get to have? We get to have money. We get to have profit. That's going to be, that's going to fulfill our needs in the family arena. Then you've got fitness. Okay, so you need to be healthy. We got to be sharp. And I don't mean you got to be a physical monster. Okay. But I love to work out. That's part of what I do. But we try to eat properly. We want to fuel our brain and our body so we can perform at the highest level, both in our business and with our family. So that's a critical element. And then there's friendships, right? We have to have that as well. There has to be some kind of separation from everything else. Now, I have, let's say, not a lot of friends. My joke with my kids is, well, if I had, if all my friends were on one hand, if I lost 3 fingers, I still have my friends. Okay. So I just don't have that many, because I look for real high quality, right? That's the people I want to spend time with. So, but I have that luxury to do that, right? Because I have things really ordered. So for me, that's where my balance began once I fixed the business aspect. So in business number 2, I said, I'm not going to live here. I'm not going to stay at work all the time. I'm going to hire trainers. I opened a gym. I'm doing this different stuff. Really worked out well. Took that into my third business, which is a contracting business. And it's just like, this is the way to do it. And I started helping other businesses do that as well. So for the balance, like you said, the harmony, again, if you have all those elements in your life, again, there's different percentages, right? There's different priorities on these things. But when you have those, that's when you create that harmony that you're talking about.
Interesting. So the 5 F's, I like it a lot. I normally do a variation of this, but I like that you've just brought it here. 5 F's. Easy to remember: faith, family, finances, friendships, and fitness. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think from what I got from you, Richard, if it is that I was supposed to begin, I would say start with just getting that owner to doing only 5% of the business, what nobody else can do, right? The vision and the strategy, all of that. If you were to give us a set of steps and to build on that, to escaping that owner's prison, what would those steps entail?
So this is going to seem counterintuitive, but you want to start with your exit strategy. That's what you want to start with. You want to start with the end.
You know what? Interesting that you've said that, because I just jot down, you see me jotting, I just jot down succession planning, right? Because I wanted to go there. So we're in sync. So let's hear it.
Awesome. So so there's 2 times to do an exit strategy. The first time is before you start your business. That's the best time, right? Before you launch. The second best time would be right now. Okay. So if you haven't done it, you can start today. So, but we want to look at it this way. You go out to the end. What I mean by this, now keep it real high level. How long and how much? How long do you want to do this business? And how much do you want for the business when you exit? Do you want 1 million, 10 million, 100 million, a billion, whatever it is? I don't know what the business is. It's applicable to all businesses. So let's just say, for simplicity's sake, I want to do 10 years and I want to exit for $10 million in my business, whatever that business might be. Okay, well, great. Now I know that. I have those two things. Okay, now I have to reverse engineer. So we come back to today. So now I have 10 years to achieve this. What does that look like? So if we walk our way backwards, what that does for you, Heneka, is it shows you like where you're going. So you can set a path. You have something to focus on. It's not just get the payroll next Friday. Okay, that's how most businesses operate. Let me get the payroll next Friday. Let me keep making payroll every week, every 2 weeks, right? They're stuck in that little trap as well. So at the end, if I want $10 million, I have to figure out how I sell a business for $10 million, right? And that's not going to be something that I'm running in the day to day, right? I have to systemize, I have to build it. But here's the key. Like, let's say a $10 million business, I'm probably making a 7-figure salary at that time of exit, right? I'm making $1 million a year. So even if I sold my business and I got that $10 million, what do I lose? I lose the $1 million a year because I no longer own the business. So I get 10, but I'm going to lose $1 million a year. So the first thing I'm going to think about is, okay, if that's where I'm going to go, how do I maintain that? What do I have to do to keep that $1 million a year? Oh, I got to purchase assets, income producing assets. So I can lay out a plan over the next 10 years, whether that's real estate or other forms of investment. I'm going to need $83,000 a month coming in passively. Wow, if I could get to that in 10 years and sell my $10 million business, I get a $10 million check and I'm still making $1 million a year passively. If I never worked again, I still got that. See, so now as we just again reverse engineer, you start to learn when you need to hire your first person, second person, third person, what you need to do to build all this. How many, if I'm doing real estate, how many homes do I need to acquire? Do I have to do multi-resident? What do I have to do? And you can start to lay that out. And also one of the best things about exit strategy, Heneka, is it's a great business filter. All right. Because you're going to get a lot of opportunities coming your way as you start to gain traction in your business that actually are distractions. Oh, you can make a lot of money doing this because I got some money. Well, let me run that through my exit strategy first. Does that get me closer to the exit or does it detract from it? Is it going to slow me down? Because I can't be slowed down. I have to get to my exit. So if it slows me down, it's a hard no. If it gets me closer, bring it on. I'll take that on. I want to get to that exit, right? So that helps keep you very, very focused on exactly what you're doing, the mission at hand. Because so many owners, I see it all the time, they get distracted with these little shiny bells and whistles that people are saying, hey, you should do this. This would be good for your business. And it really isn't, right? So we have to stay really focused. So exit strategy has that powerful filter aspect to it that can help guide you, because we're always going to get distracted as entrepreneurs. And one last thing that you're saying about succession, maybe you want to hand it down. It doesn't matter what you want to do at the end. It's important as you have that exit. So let's just say if I want to exit and do the 10 million in 10 years, and now I'm at year 9 and I'm having so much fun and I'm killing it in business, I don't have to sell in 10 years. I can sell in 12 years or 14 years or whenever I feel like selling, right? But the beauty of it is I've built a business to sell. And if you build a business to sell, you've got a business that runs itself, because no owner wants to come in to your hot mess. They don't want to reinvent your business. They don't want to come in and fix everything, though there is a place for that, right? That's a different entrepreneur. They want to come in, hand you that $10 million check, shake your hand, you're out, they're in, and nobody knows the business sold. So that's the goal, right? No one knows it changed ownership. That's a well-run business. Then they can do what they want, but they've gained their market share, right? That's how that works. So that's the critical aspect of exit strategy in a very large nutshell.
Mm-hmm. And so, right. So that's one of the things, another one of the steps that you take in terms of escaping that prison. Just take us to some other points that we need to consider as entrepreneurs so that we don't get bogged down, in all of this prison that it can be. Yes, it's liberating to be an entrepreneur, but it can also be very not so, right?
Yeah, I think the majority are in that pattern I spoke of. The majority are working a lot. I'm going to air quote succeeding. Okay, you're doing your own thing. You launched a business. The business exists. It's going. You just haven't been able to separate yourself. So maybe you're still working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, right? If you do this right, literally you'll be down to 15 hours a week. Okay, and some can be even less, but I like to keep it right about there because you're coming and doing what matters. Everything else is handled, right? Everyone knows what they do, how they do it, right? They're able to come in and function and win. Everybody on the team, everyone in your business should know what success looks like on the daily, on the weekly, on the monthly, the quarterly, and the yearly. If I know what success looks like as an employee somewhere, guess what I can do? I can win every day, right? And if I can win every day in my job, I'm going to feel pretty good about myself because the owner showed me what winning is. And I actually have a system to win. And that's really rewarding for the people on your team. When you create it this way, this is where your freedom comes from. Because you have people who are working for purpose. They're enjoying what they do, right? They're making they're crossing the goal line all the time. And that's a good feeling for people to have.
You know, interesting that you say that because I run a social enterprise and right now it's a startup. And so it's run on volunteers or advisors. Nobody's paid. We have a board of advisors who are from Switzerland, Germany, India, Jamaica. And then we have a team of volunteers from Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, the UK. And it's interesting because I spoke with one of them today online. Well, not today, earlier, a couple of days ago. And I was praising them. I love what you're doing. You're an amazing team. And you know what she says to me? We believe in the vision. Because they believe in the vision. And that just sent a series which kind of brings me into the fact that I'm going to be doing a lot of Find Your Why based on Simon Sinek, Start with Why, right? And it just reminded me that it's so important. Vision is so important. If that vision is not communicated, then we have persons coming in to work for us, whether it's online or in a physical space. They don't know what they're working towards. Their job becomes dull and boring, and they're disinterested, they're disconnected. So thank you so much, Richard, for reiterating the fact that having a vision is so important. But as you spoke, it dawned on me that what you're saying could be construed as this is for the crowd that is, they have an established business. How about the startup that is bootstrapping their business and that founder has to pretty much be jack of all trades and perhaps master of none, right?
Right.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah, that's and like I said, there's no escaping that. That is your temporary role.
Okay. It's not permanent. You don't live there.
No, and that's
okay.
Again, this is that problem. The first 2 years, you are gonna work really hard. You're gonna put in 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. You have to, because like you said, you can have a vision. We can talk about that too and how to do that. But if you have a vision, okay, you have to begin to fulfill the vision, and you have to share that purpose and that vision with other people to get on board. But in the meantime, you have to do the dailies. You have to put this stuff together. But if you have a plan, just like the exit strategy, you know when that point ends. You know when you bring on the first person, second person, who then you're able to delegate this work to. As long as you have their lanes built out properly, you can delegate and put them in place. And then you can see the exit from that every day, do all things. And here's a little caveat to that too. When you've got a plan like that, you can share it with your family. Okay. If you have a family, they need to understand the phases of your business, because if they don't understand what you have to go through, how can they be your cheerleader? If you're going to come home and tell them it's just business, you wouldn't understand. You don't want to talk about it. They don't know what you're in startup phase. They don't even know the difference between startup and phase 2 and 3 and 4 and exit. They don't know any of that. How can they possibly encourage you? All they see is misery. Okay, you come home with this thing, but you can go home and just release, 10, 15 minutes, say, well, hey, I'm in this phase. Even if you're going to scale, let's say you start getting pretty well established and now it's time to scale. You say, okay, scale phase. This is what it's going to look like. Tell your family it's gonna be a couple hard for a few months. Okay, I'm gonna put in a few extra hours. We're gonna grow a little bit, but then it's gonna be this. So now they know what's coming. Okay, it changes the whole game, the whole family dynamic, because a business can destroy a family better than anything, better than a mistress. Okay, I mean because it is a mistress, right? It's this thing that just constantly draws you in your thought and everything else. And if you don't balance that out with your family, so they understand where you're at in the journey. If they know, they're all good. They will cheer you on. They'll be your best cheerleaders.
Boy, Richard, I think this conversation is just flowing so naturally. I love how it's flowing because it's as if you're peeking on my notes to see where I'm going next. Because what I was about to ask, what I wanted to ask you after, you responded so well, is how does one get your family to buy in when you're particularly in those first 2 years, when it's all about almost the hustle and the grind, and you have to do it all and be jack of all trades, and you are the marketing officer, you are the janitor, you are the bearer, all of these things. How do you get your family to understand this is where we are and I need some grace?
Yeah, I think it's really that sharing, really understand, because here's the thing, you have a plan. The problem with most entrepreneurs, they start and they just, again, they're trying to get the payroll taken care of. They're trying to go sell. They're trying to do all this, but there's no plan. So, and I'm going to go from a husband's position, right? So I'm a man in business. So what's my wife's, we have 6 children. What's her number one concern? It's security. Okay. You have I had 6 children, 4 years and younger. Okay. So think about that. And she's dealing with that. And I'm like making money, not making money, was doing really well. And then also we don't have anything. All she's concerned about, are we going to be able to feed the kids? Are we going to have money to keep our house? And I lost a house, right? So she didn't know the plan. I just kept doing things. We need more money. I'll make more money. Right. Well, eventually that doesn't work. Okay. You can't make enough, or the whole economy collapses and all of a sudden the money isn't there anymore. Right. And I lost $500,000 in a day. November 5th of 2008, $500,000 on that day. And then it just kept going off the cliff. So you have to understand, like when you're dealing with family, if they don't know the plan, how can they anticipate anything? So if you have a plan laid out, again, you've worked backwards from that exit strategy, you can tell them what phase you're in. This is what I'm predicting to happen. But you also, just to be on the other side, it doesn't mean like, guess what? You don't get to talk to me for 2 years. Just let me do my thing. It's not that. Okay. So you have to say, okay, I am going to block out time for my family. Yeah, I'm going to work 60, 70 hours. Okay. But there's times when my kids sleep. My wife sleeps. I may not sleep as much, or whatever the case. You have to make some time to include them. That's separate from the business. And it's so easy, Heneka, not to do that. If you love, I love my business. I love coaching people now, right? But I love I want to be there. I want to do it. I want to achieve all this stuff. It's so easy to cut everybody else out. And it's a disaster. It is the worst thing you can do. So you got to plan that a little bit of time. They don't get all your time. They understand that, but they have to have some. And you share where you're at in the journey, and they get to watch you succeed. Because here's the thing, talk about kids. People want to give their business to their kids. Most kids don't want your business.
True.
Okay. You know why? Because you have a hot mess. They see everything is taken from you. They don't get to see. Why would they want that business? Why would they want to do that to their family? Right. So you think about it like, wow, this is where you got to spend some time in the vision aspect, right? Really thinking about the consequences of starting a business with your family. If you don't plan to make that work together, and I don't mean they have to be part of the business, but they have to be informed on where you're at and what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's what's going to keep it together. And it's going to speed your success.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to feel completely alone.
Going back to the 5 F's: faith, family, finances, friendship, and fitness.
Yeah.
There's just so much I want to ask you, Richard. I want to ask you about that $500,000 that you lost in Bay. I want to ask you about your inspiration. I know from writing the book, Escape the Owner's Prison. And was it cathartic for you? Did you find yourself demonstrated on those pages? Succinctly as you can.
Sure.
Share.
Sure. Yeah. So the book was just, it was in me.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it very quickly. It's my story that weaves in and out of all the things I failed at, why my business failed, how you can make yours succeed. So it kind of goes through the whole story. And again, it goes from 0 to a million, million to 5 million, or 5 million to 10 million. It kind of shows you the phases and what to expect. And that's why I really wrote it, so people can have something tangible in their hands to know that, listen, failure's okay. It's quitting that I'm not a fan of. You're going to have failures. As long as you're in business, you're going to have failures. Some are small, some are big, right? But it's the not quitting that gets you through. That's the big takeaway. And the book was really just like I said, it was in me. I literally wrote it in about 3 weeks. had an editor, and she did a few changes. And wow, what took me the longest was the title and the subtitle. The book was a piece of cake. Okay, I had 27 working titles.
Stop right there, because many authors are just listening and like, I hate you right now. I'm still hating you right now because they've been sitting on their book for 10 years, right?
Yeah. Now I have 2 books. I have 2 books now, so I'm working on a third. But yes, the title and the subtitle, that's where the money is. Okay, I had 27 working titles. Still wasn't happy. I went with the 28th. So I'm at a track meet for my kids with another friend of mine who's a business owner as well. And his name was Troy. I said, Troy, I got a new one. Tell me what you think. Escape the owner prison. And he looked at me and said, that resonates. I said, done. That's what it is. Then I had to come up with the subtitle, so we did that too. But yeah, it took a lot of iterations to get that. But yeah, the book was a real joy to write, really fun because I got to weave my story in there, family and everything else. Let people know it's real.
Yeah.
I'm not some business genius. Okay. I'm smart in business. I help a lot of people now because of all the failures I had.
Mistakes that you've made, right?
Yeah. So I can save you 10 years of misery. I can just help them. I love doing that because I love to see other businesses succeed. Yeah. Because it is the freedom. It is the profit. It's impact. You can do so much. If you follow this course and you persist and you have the grit, and you can get through this, understand failure is just a lesson. Just don't quit. Your life will be like no one else's. It's amazing.
Amazing. I know you're not going to leave my audience hanging, Richard. We want to hear a little bit about that, losing that 500,000.
Yeah. So November 5th of 2008 was the day after our election. And my phone started ringing. Everyone's canceling their contracts. We're not doing anything. No one had money. No one was spending anything. Like at least the next year and a half. I mean, people they didn't need a water feature. No one had to have a pond in their backyard. Okay. They didn't have to have a sculpture. Okay. So they pretty much and they had booked all this stuff. So that first day was, I'm gonna hang up the phone right in the end of the day in the last call. I looked at my office manager and I said, I think it's over. I don't know. This is day one, and it was I did the numbers, it's $500,000. And then we continued over the next few months. Nothing was recovering. It was worse and worse. We're limping along. I got a little bit of work, but not enough to keep going. I'm like, this is insurmountable. I said, I'm at a point where I just can't continue. So, the total loss ended up being over $1 million, even by the middle of the summer. So it was very difficult and it was so fast. And when you have future contracts, okay, that's your business. I mean, that's what you've been working for, and you have all this stuff lined up. When that goes away in a day, that you don't know what to do, because if people who already signed, and a little hint about contracts, they're kind of really only worth the paper they're written on. People are going to cancel, they're going to cancel. So, and that time, if you were around then, it was fast. Everybody was suffering. Everybody's losing everything. It was a wild time. Right. So I was just another, I'm going to air quote, victim. It really, really kind of, it was my fault. I didn't do the right things to have my business be recession proof, even at that level. So now I know better, and I do other things to help other people get in a place where they don't do that. But yeah, that was really difficult. And again, 6 little kids. My wife lost her home, had to relocate, had to move to another state, had to do all this stuff. It was a challenge, to say the least.
I can just imagine, No, we're going to pause right here. I mean, just so many gems that you've dropped, Richard, and interesting conversation. We're going to pause here, and I'm going to do the community connection segment. So in this segment, I invite you, our community, to share your reviews, your questions, your feedback, whatever it is you want to share, to engage with me. And this week, I'm sharing a book review from one of my books, Podcast Power, the Quick Start Guide to Launching and Leveling Up Your Brand. And this review comes from Monique Russell out of the United States of America. It is only fitting that veteran podcaster Heneka Watkis-Porter write a book about the ins and outs of podcasting. She has left no stone unturned. From ensuring you understand your audience to equipment and monetizing, she has covered it all. This book is an essential resource for anyone thinking about starting a podcast or who has an existing one. I am so grateful for this book. It was very pivotal for me starting my own show. Thank you so much, Monique, for your feedback, for engaging with us in the community connection segment. And speaking of book, I have been talking with Richard Walsh, and he has written the book Escape the Owner Prison. And we want to hear from Richard where we can find it, where we can get that book, and if he has any freebie for you, our community, or peak performers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Amazon, the book selling monopoly, they've got my book. You can get it there on Kindle or in the paperback. But let's do this, Heneka. This has been such a great interview. Let's give your listeners a gift.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
If they go to Richard at sharpenthespearcoaching.com, that's my email, they can go on the site as well. Go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com, send me an email, says, hey, I saw you at Heneka's show. I'd love a free copy of the audio version of Escape the Owner Prison. And I will send them the audio version of the entire book.
Okay, so that's Richard at sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Interesting. Mm-hmm. And they will get a free copy of the audio version.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. And we can find you where outside of your email and your website?
Right. Sure. You can find me on any of the socials, from Facebook to Instagram to LinkedIn, all those good things. You'll find Richard Walsh or Sharpen the Spear. You can find that there. And yeah, I love to connect with everyone. Love you to get my audio version of the book, though you do have to listen to me read it for 2.5 hours. So, you get that pleasure. Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. And that's what we do.
Thank you. So, trending now, nearly 50% of small businesses fail within the first 5 years, according to the U.S. Small Business Administration, primarily due to poor management and burnout. A key factor is that owners often try to wear all the hats themselves, leading to overwhelm and inefficiency. Learning to delegate and seek support is essential for long-term success, and that's what's trending now. Again, I want to thank you so much, Richard Walsh, for coming on the Entrepreneurial You. You've shared so many gems. You've talked about, getting the owner to do only 5% of what is required in the business, like the strategizing, all of that, and focusing on the 5 F's: faith, family, finances, friendships, and the fitness. And also, what was very important in you sharing with me today, Richard, was the fact that you spoke about pretty much like what the book advocates: start with the end in mind, begin with the end in mind. Think about your exit strategy. What is it that you're going to sell it? You're going to pass it on, but when do you want to get out, and by how much do you want to get out by? So that for me was poignant. Whatever is your takeaway, my peak performance, I want you to share that with us as well. So again, thank you. Thank you so much, Richard.
Heneka, it's been awesome being on. I really appreciate having me as a guest.
Awesome. And to all you my peak performers, remember that you have the power. It's within you to implement the actionable advice, the steps, the tips that you heard earlier today that were shared on this show in your business. Because the idea of you spending time with me is not just because you have time to waste, time to pass. You want to make sure that you take the actionable tips, you take the suggestions, you take the information, and you find something to implement. Find one thing to implement. Get in the habit of identifying one thing that you can find to implement when you listen to a podcast, when you watch a show, when you read something, right? When you read a book. So keep pushing forward, stay energized, and know that your best days are ahead of you. So if you enjoyed today's episode, by all means, hit the subscribe button so you never miss an update. And do share it with your friends, right? I'm Heneka Watkis-Porter, and this has been the Entrepreneurial You. Stay blessed, stay motivated, and keep shining. And I ask you to affirm with me: I embrace change, nurture my creativity, and witness how innovation opens doors to extraordinary possibilities. I believe in my power to rebuild, rethink, and renew. I will keep pushing forward, staying inspired, and remembering that the best is yet to come. Until next time, like I said, I'm Heneka Watkis-Porter, and this has been the Entrepreneurial You. Thanks so much to the Jamaica Stock Exchange for being our sponsor, and of course to HenekaWatkis-Porter.com. Do take care.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Robbie Samuels hosts the On the Schmooze podcast. Robbie, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
Since 2015, I've interviewed entrepreneurs who overcame challenges to achieve success in their field or industry. Tune in to On the Schmooze to listen as I ask deep questions to elicit untold stories about leadership and networking.
And where can people subscribe?
Find the show at ontheschmooze.com or on marketingpodcast.net, or just search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard them. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.